Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema. Sit down, as you can see, man. We're still rocking what we were just rocking in the last video, because that's what we're diving right in, man, to my spoiler review for this show. So pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're going to go all in on Daredevil Season 3, and there is a lot to unpack, man. This season was huge. So many reveals, so many twists, so many turns, so many great character arcs and developments, and we are just going to rip through, man, the whole episode list. That's how we're gonna break it down. We'll kind of chunk some things together, dive into some things, but it's gonna be fun because that's what this season was, man. It was jam-packed. And like I said, this season kind of starts slowly. It's very methodical, both in what it's delivering and in its pacing early on. And episodes 1 through 3 are really about rebuilding Matt Murdock. After, the results of the Defenders and the building collapsing on him, we kind of get a flashback sequence where we see that it actually led to water that rushes out of a pipe and kind of flushes him out into the river. He ends up on the shores, gets a hold of somebody that takes him to the church where he grew up as an orphan. And he's brought in by, Sister Maggie. And they kind of take care of him there. And those first 3 episodes are really about rebuilding Matt. You also have Father Lantham. And between him and Sister Maggie, it's about, recouping Matt, both physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And Matt's not about the spiritual end, man. He says, he's like, I've seen God's true face at this point, and I know that I can't be Matt Murdock anymore. I am nothing but Daredevil, and I have to get back to work. In these first 3 episodes, man, you see the rebuilding of physical first, right? I mean, he's lost his hearing in one ear. He can't smell. There's a scene, I mentioned it in the non-spoiler, man, that you just go, ugh, where he clears out his nose. He throws warm water in there, and it leads to, coming out of his nose, spitting. It's just so much blood. But then he can smell, and then that kind of starts, some things. Then he also realizes that if he can touch the ground, he can feel the railway systems underneath. And that helps him start to gain his balance and bearing as he's kind of rebuilding himself in these early episodes. He goes out and he kind of wins some fights but loses because he's not 100%. And once he gets his hearing back, with everything else that he's learned in this early stretch, we really get to see a Daredevil that steps it up a notch, even though he is vulnerable all season long. It is not an easy season for Daredevil, but we really get to see raw Daredevil take over. And a lot of that's discussed in these first 3 episodes, man. He has some wonderful sequences with Sister Maggie. Where they just kind of are going back and forth and they're talking about Faith and his past and where he is. And then you get, like I said, you get to see the repair physically, both mentally and emotionally. And while all that's going on in those first 3 episodes, you're also getting to see Karen and Foggy dealing with the fact that Matt's gone. And, there's a sequence when the first night he goes out, he saves a father and a daughter from being kidnapped. And the father ends up being in a coma. But he does save everybody. And, that leads to a story that Karen's working on, and the girl tells you until this other guy showed up. He was wearing a black kind of hooded mask over his face. And Karen had never thought that Matt was dead. She just didn't feel it. She was still paying his bills. And now she hears that, and she's like, Matt could definitely still be alive. And Foggy has put it to rest. And they have this emotional scene, man, in Foggy's family's meat shop. Deli, and they, Foggy's like, you just have to admit he's gone. He's gone. She's like, you won't even say that he's dead. You keep saying he's gone. He's like, Karen, he goes, Karen, he's dead. If Matt was still alive, he would have reached out. And then, of course, by the end of this first 3 episodes, Matt ends up having to reach out to Foggy, because he needs to warn them that they're in danger because of stuff that's going on with Fisk. And he wants them to, be safe. And, I loved what they allowed, both Foggy and Karen's characters to kind of do in these early episodes. And Eldon Henson and Deborah Ann Woll are just really, really good this season. And they provide really good support, especially early as we're kind of building slowly. And parallel to Matt, we have Wilson Fisk, and, he's in prison, he gets shanked, and he demands kind of to be moved somewhere special. And he said that they put him in this hotel 24-hour guard, house arrest style, he'll cooperate. And he starts giving up major assets for the FBI, which is being led by Agent Nadim, as he's kind of fought and pushed to get this, hoping that it would lead for a promotion for him so that, he can take care of his family. We find out that his sister has been sick with cancer. The medical wasn't being covered, so he was paying out of pocket. All these things that are going on, you got to remember all of them, man, because they all play important roles down the line. And again, it's the way this season is written that, like, you get these little sprinklings early, like things with Nadine that we learn that play out later on. We'll get there in ways you're just like, wow, really good writing and really, really great stuff for Wilson Fisk. And that in these sequences that as they're going to transfer him, they get raided. And this, I mentioned this in my non-spoiler, one of the best, early pops, you get to see Ben Poindexter, Special Agent Ben Poindexter. After the convoy gets hit, they get ambushed by, the Albanians. Fisk's got some beef going on with the Albanians because he kind of turns on them. And, they hit the convoy. They're coming in to get him, and all of a sudden, it seems like FBI guys are getting taken out. They're getting merged in, and then you just start hearing single gunshots and bodies dropping. And then you see, pieces of guns, clearly I've run out of ammo, I'm gonna throw things, going in dudes' necks. And it's the first time we get to see Special Agent Poindexter in work. But we're not even seeing him work. We're just seeing the results. People are just dropping. We see him ricochet a couple bullets. It's unbelievable. And that was the stuff. I think some of that was in the trailer. And that was when I was like, he's definitely going to be Bullseye, man. As soon as I saw the Ricochet stuff, might have been even Comic-Con. First time I saw one of those Ricochet shots, I was like, definitely Bullseye. He's coming. But really, really good stuff. And it ultimately leads to him getting into this beautiful hotel. But you're just like, damn, man. This is prison for a criminal as bad as Fisk. He's living a pretty good life. And once he's there enough, I think it's about episode 5, maybe 6 or 7. But somewhere in the middle of the season, after he's helped the feds enough, supposedly, they finally give him the suit, man. He wears the white suit, and it's cool. They actually they telegraph the white suit early, where Matt has a lot of these conversations with Fisk, because it's Matt having his internal dialogue, but it's Fisk being all the things that are haunting Matt. And every time he's talking to him, the focus is on Matt, but Fisk is blurred in the background. Brilliant. I loved it, because every time it tells you that that's what's going on. He's not actually in the room with Fisk. And it does. It kind of leaves this blurriness that kind of works in a way that just fits the character and just shot so well. But we get to see it early there, and then of course he really does get to don it, man. And he is operating at, as the Kingpin. From atop this penthouse, even though he's on house arrest. And we start to see some of that trickle by the time we get to episode 4. And episode 4 is, like I said, the first real big episode. We do get to see a real quick bit at the end of episode 3 that kind of sets up for where you're seeing Matt's almost back to a decent amount of full strength. He goes out, questions one of Fisk's lawyers, wants to know why he rolled on the Albanians, and then runs into a whole slew of FBI guards in this garage, man. And he goes to work. And this was another sequence I saw at Comic-Con, and it's just so well edited, man. The way they are able to move between Charlie Cox and Charlie Brewster, as the stunt double comes in and out where they need it. The pacing and the way it's shot and edited, a lot of steady one cams, just really, really good stuff. That just sets you up for an episode that episode 4 was unbelievable in so many ways. And we'll start on the back, right? And we'll talk about how Foggy at this point is kind of starting to realize that Fisk is out. The FBI is catering to his needs because he's rolling on certain assets. And Foggy's like, this is outrageous. We can't let this stand. And he kind of questions the guy who's running for DA. And the DA's like, I can't do anything. We've done everything that we could possibly do. This is how it has to be. And Foggy and his girlfriend, Marcy, she's like, you have to go on the offensive, Foggy. If you're a target, put yourself in the public eye so that he can't come after you. And he kind of starts to counter run for DA. And you get to see the beginnings of this in episode 4, and it just sets up so many wonderful moments for Foggy, where he kind of gets in front of cameras or in front of people. I mean, he has a speech again in front of the police station, or one of the police kind of like, not benefits, but one of their kind of functions. He shows up. He figures if he can get police support, he could really be a write-in DA candidate. And he does. And he just, every time he's there, man, doing one of these kind of speeches, shows up at a dinner that the DA, house or tower, that's what it is. He shows up at one of these tower like events, and Eldon Henson is just on fire every time he's doing one of these. And you get to see, like I said, the beginnings of it in episode 4 kind of start there. We also get to see Fisk starting to manipulate Dex. As we get to hang out more with Agent Poindexter, toward the back halves of 3 and early on in 4, you start to see that Fisk, one, does a ton of research on him and sees that he's a broken orphan. And, no parents, kind of latches onto his we get to go in deep in episode 5, I believe, on him, or one of those, it might be 5 or 6, but we really dive in on what's going on with Poindexter. And Fisk starts to see opportunities where he can manipulate Poindexter, because he saw how ruthless he is, he saw how dangerous he is, and he knows that if Daredevil's back, which he finds out somewhere around here too, that he's gonna need somebody. And he immediately starts to focus on Matt Murdock, as he is persuading Poindexter to kind of swing over to working for him. And how he goes after Matt has this clever idea that he's going to go back to prison and talk to one of him and Foggy's old clients. He steals Foggy's bar ID, because he can't have a facial ID, and kind of weasels his way into the prison, talks to this guy so that he can get a face-to-face with the Albanians. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky in this episode, because the guy punches him in the face, and this starts the first domino in a line of dominoes that lead to this unbelievable sequence in the prison. But it's one of those, you don't know if the punch was ultimately supposed to lead him to the Albanians, because he ends up with them at one point. But then also, you find out that Fisk is doing way more than the FBI knows. He has secret passages and compartments inside of this hotel, and he stages, Matt gets punched in the face and then ends up in the infirmary, where this guy tries to assassinate him with a needle of something, and then he takes that dude out, and Fisk calls him, and they start talking, and he's like, "I'm watching you," and you see that Fisk is in this room with all these different video feeds, and he's watching Matt. And then, when Matt was walking into the infirmary, he's passing all of these cells, and when he goes to leave, he tries to leave, and Fisk locks the door first, then opens it. And it's just like the prison is starting to unload, and Matt's got to go through it. He takes on 3 dudes. The sequence and the way it is shot, man, with this just one camera follow, it's some of the best choreography they've had, easily. Even though I didn't think it quite reached the hallway scene, because it felt like there was going to be that. Like, it was just going to be all of these different, prisoners coming out, and it's a smaller amount than you'd imagine. But the sequence is unbelievable, and the whole prison sequence in general is unbelievable. You kind of get this brief stop where he's having conversation with the Albanians, but then they got to get him out, and by the time Matt gets into the cab, he's exhausted, wiped, and he's just like, drive, and you understand, man. You're like, Charlie, if I'm Charlie Cox, we just did all this pretty much in one take. I would be exhausted. It's phenomenal. It's easily, I think, the best action sequence in the entire season, and it leads to a place where Matt kind of just passes out and the cab goes driving, and when Matt wakes up, the guy who's driving the cab is not the cab driver that he had. He bails out and launches him into the water, and obviously Matt gets out, goes back to his apartment, which, the feds then search, and they find the wet clothes. So now they know that Matt's back, and also how Karen, I think, or no, he goes and finds Karen first, but all this stuff's kind of going on, and, you're kind of flying into episode 5, after all of this. He's revealed himself to Foggy. He finally reveals himself to Karen. And as we head into episode 6, we've now kind of revealed some of these things, and we lead to another big episode where Matt, has asked for Karen's help, and they're trying to get the guy who shanked Fisk, we find out, was actually paid. The things the Albanian tell Matt in episode 4 is that the Fisk paid this guy who was a lifer to shank him. And if he shanked him, he would get him out of prison. He's supposed to be in solitary, but he's not. He's free. They find him, Daredevil and Karen find him, bring him in to the paper to do an interview and take his statement. And that's when we find out that Fisk has finally gotten Dex wrapped around his finger. And as Dex is having this mental break, episode 5 really focuses in on Dex's past, how, after he lost his parents, he acted out. He needed to kind of latch on to something very similar to Dexter, which is kind of funny. Like watching Dexter, stuff that he did as a kid, kind of very similar. But he latches on to his therapist, and his therapist, like, you kind of always need somebody, a North Star, somebody that's helping you, guide you, to keep you in line. And she gets cancer, is going to die, says if you don't have a North Star, you have to have a rigid structure. And as you see things about him, you're watching it, I was like, oh man, he's really OCD. Everything is kind of boom, boom, boom. He's military based too. That's all because this rigid structure keeps him from snapping. And Fisk at this point has manipulated him enough to make him snap. And he has, his new kind of point guy call him and say, we've sent you a package. We have a job for you. And he shows up at the newspaper as Daredevil. And we get this unbelievable sequence where he kills like 3 different newspaper employees, takes out a whole bunch of people, kills, ultimately ends up killing the guy who's going to testify. But before that happens, he's about to kill Foggy, and a hand grabs the baton that's flying at Foggy's face, and boom, you get your showdown between Daredevil and Daredevil, right? You get the black-masked Daredevil and the Daredevil-suited Daredevil. And this actually brings up a really funny conundrum, right? It's one of those things we've all joked about. How Charlie Cox doesn't quite look right in the cowl because he doesn't have really distinguished jawlines. And they figured out a way for all season to him to be in the black mask. But we get to see Daredevil via Dexter, Ben Poindexter. And Dex looks phenomenal. He looks so good in the suit. And this sequence is, again, on the edge of your seat. And every time Matt tries to do something, he's throwing some piece of office equipment or a pencil, and it's hitting Matt in the hands. And it's a really, really, again, well choreographed, really well executed sequence. Absolutely loved it. And it's like coming off of episode 4, episode 6 not only gave you something awesome in action, but elevated everything in it. It's probably the best episode of the whole season. And after he beats Matt, Matt loses. Matt loses more than once in this season. And he knocks him out, and he goes in and he kills the guy. But he doesn't kill Karen. Instead, he just says, hey, good to see you again, Karen, which the feds pick up on in video, which then kind of like make them start questioning a lot of things they don't need to be questioning. But a really, really strong episode 6 that just sets you up for a roller coaster ride down the back half of the season. And 7 through 10 really start to build tension amongst everybody as Fisk, as I said, comes into full comic form. He's wearing the white suit, the black shirt. He is at this point operating. We found out that he has shell companies that ended up buying the hotel. So they built this secret room that when he's in his bedroom, there's no cameras in there, but he's still technically in the space as he goes below it into the secret room where he has all these cameras. He's literally watching the entire city. He orchestrates a meet, right? As we start to find out more and more, it really falls through Agent Nadim's story that he has been manipulating everybody from the get-go. Like we said, he has the guy shank him on purpose so that he can get out of prison and get into this hotel. He wraps up Nadim, he's had Nadim targeted before Nadim was even there. Like his sister having the bills and stuff land on him to put him in hard financial time. All Fisk. He had that stuff pull away. So it's set Nadim up for a place where he would have to turn. And that's what happens. Nadim finally finds something, is about to admit something, and his special agent above him kills their superior right in front of Nadim. And it's like, I can't believe you just made me do this. And they basically frame him to make him work for Fisk, something Fisk was going for the whole time. It is wild, man. This happens with multiple people. He gets Foggy in the same situation where he, kept suppliers going. Foggy's brother was running the shop with his dad. And he cuts out the suppliers so that the suppliers aren't bringing food, so that they get this offer from this Red Lion bank that really is kind of like dirty money type stuff, and get them looped in to the point that when Foggy's running for DA, he knows he can't win because he has Fisk has him under his thumb. It's unbelievable. Fisk has everybody under his thumb. And we see all of this starting to unfold in 7 through 10. And as Matt's starting to figure it out, Foggy's starting to piece things together. They start to come up with different plans. And Daredevil gets to the point where it's like, we had him. You know, we finally got Nadeem, after they kill the first guy that was going to testify. Nadeem testifies because he's like, I've seen all this. We've taken his ankle bracelet off. We had a meeting with all of the different crime lords, and they're going to pay Fisk 25%. He killed a dude in that room. He's seen all these things. He testifies, and Fisk gets somebody inside on the grand jury who knows every single jury member's house, address, and name. Starts listing them off. Matt can hear it through the doors, and he's like, we tried to do it the right way. Like, and it was great to see him, Karen, and Foggy team up again and working together. And it falls apart because Fisk infiltrates 5 steps ahead of everybody, and that makes Daredevil snap. He's already come through a portion where him and Maggie early on were talking about how he's kind of let Matt Murdock die, and Foggy and Karen get Matt back and then lose him again. And he goes on this violent spree, man, where he just has these really great scenes where he has conversations with his dad in the gym. He learns by chance, in these 3 episodes that his mom is Sister Maggie. She's praying for Matt, and she, says, she's praying to, or talking to his dad, and like, Jack, like, he's so much like you, our son. And Matt can hear it from the basement, and that, oh man, that like breaks Matt in a way, and they never, it's crazy, they never really have a conversation where they fully address it, but they kind of by the end of the season are okay. And all that stuff is just so good. But what's going on with Foggy has a plan that if he can kind of go and pop into one of Tower's benefits and get, speaking, he can have Karen cover it and get out the fact that Fisk is actually making the FBI, all the things that Nadeem told him, making the FBI bust people so that he can get their territories, get a tax, and basically run all the crime in Hell's Kitchen. So Foggy wants to go from the legal angle. He's like, if I can do this and you can cover the story, we get it out there, it'll force Tower to go after him. If he violated one thing in his agreement, he goes right back to jail. But Karen, Deborah Ann Wall, Karen can't, just doesn't feel right, and she goes on her own plan where it's like, if I can get him to hit me, he'll go right back to jail. And she goes, and this is that scene that I mentioned in my non-spoiler review. I was blown away by Deborah Ann Wall, man. She's sitting there one-on-one with Fisk and just matching and surpassing D'Onofrio. She wins the scene, which was amazing. This is some of the best stuff I've seen D'Onofrio do his whole career. And oh man, she's visceral, man. She admits to him to killing Wesley, in season 1. In season 2, she missed it killing Wesley, and he starts to lose it, and Foggy, while he's talking, figures out what's going on, like kind of just realizes, runs out, gets there, and they kind of bust in and arrest her. But, oh man, dude, it was like ready to pop off when that happened. I was like, wow, this is really, really great stuff. And that kind of puts Karen in his crosshairs, which leads into the episode titled Karen, where we get her backstory, and ultimately she's on the run, gets taken into the same church that Matt's been hiding out in. Sister Maggie tells her that she's Daredevil's mom, and that he figured it out and isn't coming back. And then eventually he obviously does come back, and it's because, he actually gets into Fisk's apartment and has him. Like, Fisk is about to come into the room, and he's gonna kill him. That's what he's there for at this point. He's like, the only way we can beat him is if I kill him. And when he realizes that Karen is at the church and there's like a call to police to like stay away from the church, Karen's been spotted there, he goes that way, runs into good old Dex dressed as Daredevil, and they have another fantastic fight sequence. And this is where I thought they were going to stick to being comic accurate, right? In the Born Again issues, Karen dies. Fisk has her killed. And Dex throws one of those batons, and you see her go, and you're like, oh my god, they're going to do it. They're actually going to kill Karen. Like, this is going to be crazy. And they don't. And in all honesty, like I said, it was like, it felt like a missed opportunity to do something big that would have been comic accurate. But to lose Deborah Ann Wall would be a really, really poor decision, because she's so good. And to get that, by the time we get to the end and the 3 get back together, you just love that so much. And, you can kind of go on some of these other classic journeys with Daredevil. So I understood why it doesn't happen, but instead they end up killing Father Lantom. And that, oh man, it's so emotional when that happens, and it kind of leads to the Daredevil fight and how he's going at it, but Dex wins again, and Deborah Wall, Karen comes in, hits him just before he's about to finish off Daredevil, knocks him off the top, and he gets away, figures we'll come back with the FBI and we'll get him that way. They're able to hide out long enough that they're able to get away, and it leads us in to the finale that is just, oh, it's so good. At the end of episode 12, Vanessa finally comes back to Fisk. Fisk has been released from prison at this point. He has the entire FBI, it seems like, in his pocket. And all the charges get dropped on him after the Daredevil, they basically have twisted the story where Daredevil's the bad guy. He's the one that set Fisk up, and after, Foggy and Karen bring the demon, and that doesn't go right. Everyone thinks they're lying. He gets off. He's free. Vanessa comes home. They get engaged by the end of the episode. You find out that they're going to go get married. And that leads us to episode 12. Episode 12 is their wedding. And the wedding is short, right? We don't get a ton of wedding stuff because we focus on an ultimate meetup, right? And throughout the season, man, this whole back and forth between Wilson and Daredevil and Dex, the chess pieces have just been moving, and I skipped over one spot before we get to the ultimate final. We're in a Demon Daredevil team up, which is phenomenal. It's really, really good stuff. And they get into Dex's apartment. Dex comes home early. He shoots Nadeem, which leads Nadeem to, try to roll on Dex, which leads to the guy getting shot at him becoming Fisk's ultimate partner. But now we're at the end, and Nadeem is basically ruined. They're like, we can go again through the court systems, but he knows he's done. And he goes back to his actual house. He gets out of the courthouse, goes home, records a video, and then Dex shows up and kills him. And that leads us into 12, where now Daredevil is like, I have no choice. I have to kill Fisk. I'm going to the hotel. This big wedding's going on, and they're like, it's going to be a fortress. I don't figure he's going to fight his way in. But he manipulates Dex by finding out that Dex was infatuated with this woman. Not because he was in love with her, but because she could be somebody that could be stable enough to be his North Star. And he kind of messes things up in that episode that he kind of focuses on him. And ultimately we find out Fisk has her killed so that he can manipulate Dex some more. Daredevil figures this out, tells Dex, and that kind of leads Dex to put the suit on and go after Fisk himself. Daredevil's able to kind of maneuver right behind him, so you see Dex take out a bunch of people, but it ultimately ends up in a showdown in the penthouse between all three of them. That's fantastic, man. The raw emotion is so amped up, and we see Fisk break Dex in two. He slams him into the corner of a wall during the fight. Him and Daredevil are just crashing through the entire apartment. Dex and Daredevil were crashing through the apartment before Fisk, destroys him. The choreography's great, but then the emotion is just building, and Vanessa's in there watching this whole thing unfold. And there's one point where Fisk has Daredevil, but Daredevil's got these ropes, to help him hit harder. He gets Fisk down to his knees, and he just starts wailing on his face. And they got that white snow rabbit painting in the background. You start seeing blood splash on it, and you're just like, oh man, this is so beautiful. Like, the way it's shot, it looks really, really good. And you finally just kind of hear Vanessa. I think Vanessa yells. Daredevil's getting ready for the kill shot, and Fisk is like, do it, just do it. And Fisk is basically telling him to kill him, and Daredevil stops. He's like, no, he yells, he just screams in his face, and he's like, no, I won't let you take away who I am. And he's like, and you're gonna go back to prison, because if you don't, I know that Vanessa put the hit on Nadeem, and I'll get her sent back to prison. So Fisk kind of agrees to go back to prison. He'll keep his mouth shut. He won't, because he's like, if you don't kill me, I'm going to tear down Foggy. I'm going to tear down Karen. This beautiful moment where Charlie Cox rips off the mask and just stares at him. And that's, I think, when he screams, he's like, I won't let you take who I am. And he tells him the Vanessa stuff and gets him back in prison. It's so good, man. Oh, it is so good. But at the same time, the video gets out. And Matt never knows about the video. The video actually goes viral once Foggy and Karen get their hands on it from Nadeem's wife, who he leaves a special message to on that. The police, the last, it's basically like his last testimony, because he's dying. It's all admissible in court, which helps bring down Fisk. And they know all this. It goes viral at the wedding, but Daredevil doesn't know any of it, right? So they're trying to stop him, and he ends up stopping it on his own, which is what you want. And like I said, he has a resolution scene with Maggie, but they don't ever really acknowledge that they both know that each other knows that they're son and mom. And then we get to the end, and we see him, Karen, and Feige all in a diner, and they're kind of reminiscing, like, yeah, it felt good to be working together again. Feige's like, I got an idea, and he writes a bunch of stuff down, shows it to Karen, and, Matt goes, he wrote all 3 of our names down, and it'll be now Nelson, Murdock, and Paige. And I was like, oh, it's just such a good, like, heartwarming ending to the season, and like I said, just so well written, man. They told the story so well. The rebirth, of Daredevil at the beginning, as he kind of rebuilds himself physically, mentally, emotionally. He goes on this spiritual and emotional journey where he comes back around, to finding his faith again by the end of the season. And he's just ready to be the Daredevil he needs to be, right? Not this angry, visceral Daredevil. And it's just wonderful, man. It's just such a good season. So many great pop moments. If you're a fan of Daredevil, this is one of the best. You definitely got to check it out. So that's it, man. That's it. I think I emptied the tank on everything that I could have possibly remembered to throw in on this season of Daredevil. It was so good. One of my favorite. Oh, but the end. Dex, I said he had his back broken. He volunteered, you hear him say at one point, he's like, I can't move, I can't do anything. Volunteers to have special surgery, and they're kind of talking about, like, you can't rebuild, like, shattered vertebrae, and, it's all this experimental stuff. And if it doesn't work, he'll never regain, mobility, but we obviously know it's going to work. As his eyes, they kind of camera pans from above to, like, below and underneath him, and his eyes open, and it zooms in on his eye, and his eye is the bullseye. And I was like, oh, that's so good. And the only other time we saw the bullseye was on his baseball cap in one of his flashback scenes to baseball. There's so many cool little things with him, and like the fact that he, is so pinpoint accurate, but that had the bullseye sign on it too. All stuff I really dug, but the ending, I was just like, oh, that's such a cool way to be like, next time we see, Ben Poindexter, he's going to be Bullseye. It was really good, man. I really, really loved it. But now it's your turn, man. This is the spoiler review, so talk about any and everything, man. Unload everything you got down below. Tell me your favorite parts, your favorite sequences, who your favorite character was this season. Everybody did a really good job. Plenty of characters to have as a favorite. Let me know all that good stuff down below. If there wasn't anything you liked in this season or that didn't work for you, let me know that too. As always, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, I'm the C-Man, and I'm signing off. Peace! Hey, what's going on, everybody? C-Man here, letting you know that the fun don't have to stop. If you want, you can check out a video like this one or this one just by clicking on them. And if you hit that guy, you'll subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything the C-Man's doing and how he doesn't talk well.